Hello everyone, today's video is going to be a walkthrough of how to run the statistics in ArcGIS Pro. With that, the statistics in the attribute table, so where you right click on a variable, a column, hit statistics, and it will generate a nice little report and chart for you for that specific variable. We'll do a couple different ones today. This is a nice feature to have, and we'll get into some of the descriptive statistics itself. Pretty handy to see. With that, you can see on the screen what we're going to be doing today. This is honestly the exact same as the homework assignment due for the class. I'm doing it this way. One, it's one of our last assignments. Two, seeing that attendance has been continually getting worse, be it over this semester, wanted to make it a bit easier for some of those students that have been showing up on a daily basis to walk through and get some of these final points towards the end of the semester. So with that, you can see in front of you some of the files that we need. So we need a Little Rock boundary file, we need the tracts that are going to be clipped to Little Rock, we also need %poverty line, and we'll pull this from Social Explorer, clean it up in Excel, and then take it into GIS. Then we're going to filter down to 2021 motor vehicle theft from Little Rock Police Department, do the XY. So here we're going to use a couple different skill sets. One, I'm making the students download a lot of different data files and then have to import them into GIS. But also the clipping feature, going into Excel, identifying the unique ID, the GEOID. So that for this one, it's going to be state, county, FIPS. State is 2, county is 3, tract is 6, so it should be 11 character unique ID, also known as the GEOID or FIPS, depending on what people use within the Excel table itself. And then also using the display XY to display the crime data. Then you have to do a table join and spatial join, and then from there you're pretty good. But with that, I've already pulled up the websites for these up here, so I'm just going to walk through how to download the data again, unzip it, and get it all into GIS, which I already have open. So I'm going to minimize this for now. For the first file, I'm already in the data portal for Little Rock itself. Went ahead, I already knew what it was called, the city boundaries updated September 2021. I can go ahead and just export this data. Since it's already in a shapefile format, that's what we need. Go ahead and click on that one to download. It's going to download as a zip folder. So again, if your computer, depending on which one you're working on, you might have to use 7-zip. But I'm just going to save here, and I have my File Explorer already open on my other screen. So I open this up now. I right click, and I'm just going to extract all. 7-zip, it's the same thing, extract files. You can either do it here or in a separate one. You can see what it's labeled for it, but we're good to go. I'm just going to exit out of that. So one, we have our boundaries. Since we're already in the Little Rock data portal, I went ahead and pulled up the crime data. For me, it's easier just to download it all and then filter in Excel. I'll make another video at another point because Tyler Technologies, he used to be more dubbed Socrata, has a lot of filters and visualization tools built into the online portal. For now, it's pretty quick for me to do in Excel rather than go through all of these steps, but I will have a video at a later date getting into some of that. So I'm going to go ahead and open that one, and I'm going to clean this one up now just to get in the habit of getting it done and out of the way. So my city boundaries is ready to go, so now I'm going to get the crime data ready to go. And keep in mind I want 2021 motor vehicle theft for Little Rock. I kept another project open in Excel thinking that it hopefully will open this file a bit quicker. Trying to test that to see. I'll hit pause here real quick just to give that a second. Oh, and of course, right when I say that, it pops up on my other screen. So let me just pull this over. All right, so keep in mind we're still in a CSV file, but that's okay for right now. What should be somewhat drilled into students' heads at this point is one function that just pulls out the year. You can do filters based on the date itself. I get in the habit of just adding a column for the year specifically. This is just what I've done time over time again. So if I do year and then equal sign year. And I click on the date. It's just going to extract that date only, pull that out for me, and I'm good to go. If you did this and you inserted a column between A and B, and you saw a crazy custom date, so if I did it here and I did the exact same thing, you might get something like this, to where it's recognizing it as a custom field, and you can see here that it's honestly a custom date. You think you did something wrong. Remember, if you jump back up here, if you click on any one of these cells, it says custom. Just click on the entire column itself. Click on general again. This list doesn't want to generate for me, it looks like. There we go. And it will shift it back to the year itself. Either way, wherever you put it, if it's next to it, Excel tries to match the field next to it or the cell next to it. So we're good to go there. The next step, I'm just going to highlight the data set by clicking that left-hand corner. And I want to do a couple filters. With that, I know I want 2021 data. So it's going to highlight all the years. I just want 2021. Then I know the offense description that I want is going to be motor vehicle theft. So I come over here, uncheck all, and I'm just going to select motor vehicle theft. So now we have a data set in front of us that's filtered to 2021 motor vehicle theft. Keep in mind, you can't take this exact filtered data set straight into ArcPro. If you see over here in the row numbers, you can see we're just skipping numbers that aren't motor vehicle theft in 2021. The actual data for the other rows are still in there, so you need to create a new sheet or a new workbook. Seeing that I'm taking this straight into ArcPro, I get in the habit of just making a new workbook for subsets of data like this. So I'm on cell A1, Control Shift down right, to where I'm selecting the data just for 2021 motor vehicle theft. If I hit Control C, it's going to copy the rows that are specifically 2021 motor vehicle theft. And you can see the lines here that represent each individual one that it's pulling out. If I do Control N for a new workbook, and then Control V and paste those in here, we're good to go. And this also allows me, since I did a new workbook, I can save this as a workbook versus CSV. Not a huge deal, because we still see we have the Latin long over here that we're going to display in ArcPro. Just make sure you save it as a file you recognize and a location to where you're familiar with. So I'm good saving it there. We're going to do motor vehicle theft 2021, Little Rock. Hit save. Give that a second, and we should be good to go to exit this one. And then I can also exit out of the overall file that we first downloaded. Remember, that's all crime data as a whole, so I don't need to save any of the changes I made. That's the other data set I was talking about. So now we're done with the crime data, and we can get into, we need first the track boundaries for the entire state of Arkansas that will then trim down to just Little Rock or Clip. Then we need to get into Social Explorer. So I'm going to exit out of this one, hop over to our census itself. We've used this website a couple different times to get boundary files. I can go to the web interface, and here's where it gives you different options for different features. Again, our purposes for this exercise assignment were to grab Census Tracts, so I can hit submit there. It's going to ask me for a specific state. I want Arkansas. Hit download, and this is going to download Census Tracts for the entire state. And this is where you'll then have to clip this just to the boundary file that we already downloaded for Little Rock. And all this means is we downloaded 2021 track level, and Arkansas is this fifth state, so 05 shows up there. Hit save. I still have my other folder open on my other screen, so if I come over again, right click on this one, and I'll do the 7-zip option to it. So if you're on 7-zip, you have a few different options, and you don't have to extract all on those computers in the lab. But if I do extract files, it'll give me an option of, do I want to save it to a different folder, different location? I'm good with what it is. I prefer this one because it will make a subfolder for it versus just putting the shapefile and the attachments or different point features in here itself. All right, our extensions, there we go. We're good there. So now we have our tracks, we have our boundary, we have our crime data. Now we need our social data that we're going to join in. With that, I have Social Explorer open. I've mentioned it before, but through U of A, you can see up here, we have a license to this, so faculty, staff, students can all use it. It's pretty handy. For now, we're going to hop into tables. We're going to do the 5-year ACS estimates here. The decennial will get better once they start to release more and more. They mostly just have the redistricting information right now, which is population characteristics and race, ethnicity. So with that, we can begin a report. We've done this a few different times at the county level, even at the state level. But this time, again, we want the census tract. And with that, we want Arkansas. And Little Rock is located within Pulaski County. So we want to select all tracts within Pulaski County. Keep in mind, this is going to be a subset as well. So we could do all census tracts in Arkansas to match our census file that we just downloaded, but at the end of the day, we only want the data that's within Little Rock, and Little Rock's within Pulaski County. So we're good there. And then the variable we wanted was poverty. This one, we're doing the population between 18 and 64, if you remember from class when we discussed that. And I know it's towards the bottom. There we go. Poverty status in 2020 for ages 18 to 64. So kicking out youth and also elderly from this. Make sure you hit add, show results. Again, this is what we expect to see. If you hop over, again, I skip over Excel. I prefer the data download. I like to have the labels and percentages. And this one will give you the percent calculation so you don't have to do it yourself. And I'll pull that up and we're going to clean this up as well. Download as a CSV. Save it into the same folder. I'm just going to label this poverty tract. Hit save. And let's just open this one in Excel. Again, a big step here is the file. If you chose the first row to have output column labels, needs to be cleaned up. So oftentimes people want to take this directly into ArcPro. There always needs, depending on usually any file that you're using, some time and effort spent looking at it, cleaning it up, so you know what you're looking at. So with that, you can see here, and we've gone over this a couple different times, I'm going to go ahead and just delete the second row. I prefer the labels in the top row. Here, I know we don't need a lot of this information, so I'm going to delete these. And this is an example of what I'm talking about when I say state, county, FIPS. And we have to go in here and correct this, because if you see here, again, Arkansas is the 5th state, so it should be 05. But you can see here how it would be in terms of 2 for state, 3 for county, and then 6 for tract. Even the leading zeros on the tracts are missing as well, so that's where you have to clean this up a little bit. But we can do that pretty quickly here in Excel. I'm just deleting this blank information. And we'll come over here and look at these. So this is where it's the nice part of when you check that box to provide the percentage for you. Social Explorer will show the population where it's based off of, so how many people are truly 18 to 64, what it's determined by from that, and then at or above, then living in, so you have your subsets here, and if you add them together, will equal the 1096 if you look at that top one. But the cool part is you have the percentage at the end as well. For our purposes, we are just interested in this column here, J, people that are living in poverty. So I'm going to delete the other ones. For our purposes in class, we don't need them. So we're good to go with deleting these right now. If you were to do this for a research project, I would say to keep all. The big part is to relabel this as well. So I'm just going to do percent poverty, pov, to make it a smaller variable name. And if you remember here, you can do this a couple different ways. You can use a concatenate to put a 0 in and force Excel to keep that in. Or we can also use the right one that we've done a couple different times before. And I'm just going to label this one let's do GEOID. and we want to use the right. And if you remember, we're selecting the cell we want to pull the right characters from. The number of characters, again, 2 for state, 3 for county, 6 for tract, so that would be 11. If I close that off now, you can see it pulls that over with a 0 for us. We're in good shape. I just copied that down, and all I'm going to do now is save this as a workbook instead of a CSV. It's still in my stats folder for this exercise video. Hit save. Exit out of this. I can now exit out of Social Explorer. Have everything I need now ready to take straight into Arc Pro, which I have open. Haven't loaded anything, so I'm just going to take a second here, add all the data into Arc Pro. So again, we need the tracks at the state level, our Little Rock boundary, the XY data for the motor vehicle theft, and then we also need the Social Explorer poverty data that we just downloaded. So I'm just directing that to the folder. And all I did there to make all this generate was hit F5. Again, that's almost a refresh in all of these subfolders when you're trying to add data. If you've made changes outside of ArcGIS Arc Pro, that's what you need to do. I just am in the very big habit of doing that. Again, if you have it saved as a workbook, you have to then select the sheet within. So oftentimes, if you remember from lab computers, this is often times where it takes a bit of time for it to generate that sheet for you. As you can see, my computer is having that same lovely ordeal of loading and trying to find out just sheet 1 itself. That's where sometimes having a CSV is quicker. I just got in the habit of using workbooks mostly now. I'm going to give that a second to load, hit pause, and there we go. I had to do it twice. It had a failure the first time, so keep in mind, students, you're not the only ones that have headaches. I still get quite a few headaches with this. Click OK. So again, this is a table that we're bringing in. This one is we're going to have to do a table join to our tracks, our XY data for the motor vehicle theft. We're going to do a spatial join. So again, hop back up to the next folder, bring in my motor vehicle theft. Hopefully this one loads a bit quicker since I just asked Pro to do the same thing on another file. There we go. So now we have our 2 table features. Let's add some boundary files. So we have our tracks, and this is going to be for the entire state. You'll see them generate for Arkansas down here. There we go. And then lastly, let's add in our boundary file for Little Rock, Arkansas. Now all I'm going to do real quick is just relabel this one so it's a bit easier to identify when I talk about it. Oh, I thought it just opened. There we go. To make this a bit easier, I'm just changing the symbology to have an outline appearance versus having a fill of any color. If it brings up the symbology options for me, nothing like a slow computer. Alright, that took a second longer than I imagined, but we're still in good shape. Maybe not. Might have spoken too soon on this part. There we go. It finally generated for us. And all I'm doing is I went into the gallery options. Just doing a black outline. It's going to shift that. So you can see here the outline of Little Rock, truly central Arkansas. If we zoom in, we can see that there's a lot more tracks within actually Little Rock. If you zoom out, you can see There's some quite large ones across the state itself. Our population hubs, you can see obviously Pulaski County and Little Rock being one, Fort Smith area in the northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville, Springdale to Rogers and Bentonville. So you can see where a lot of our population is held. If you were to right click on the census tract layer and you go to open the attribute table, you can see how many tracts there actually are within the state as a whole. We can see there's 823. With that, we want to select or pretty much clip this larger files to ones that are intersect within our Little Rock boundary. Keep in mind, I'm not going to clean this file up a ton. This is just to show to get to the stats part. If it's a project, I would show much more detail to the cleaning side. But if you don't remember where your clip feature is and you potentially have your geoprocessing tools up, or if you go to analysis at the top and click on your toolbox, you'll have the option up here towards in find tools. The first thing we need to do is clip. And I'm doing this first so we have the file specifically for Little Rock that we can just use. So if I hit clip and then enter, it's going to search through the tools itself and find any that have to do with clipping as a whole, and it's going to bring that up for you. So you don't have to go looking through all the drop down bars. Pretty handy option to have. So the first one up here, clip, that's all we need. So we're going to clip our larger state file based on the boundary of Little Rock itself. So with that, our input feature is going to be our census tracts. Our clip feature, what we want to clip on truly, is our boundary. Again, if you don't remember which one you should put where, if you hover over that little eye on the side, it will give you a bit of information on it. Mine's taking a second to load, but it will tell you what each one should represent across each little file itself. Still not generating too quickly. You can see it's still running at the top. But the last part, save it to where you recognize the folder, file extension, what you want to call it. So here I'm going to save it to the same Little Rock stats folder, just saying that it's the Little Rock tracks clipped. Oftentimes I will put what I did at the end of a file name so I know which one I'm working with. So you can see we're already in the GEOID database. I'm just going to keep it in here and do the same. So I'm going to do Little Rock tracks clipped, hit save, and then run. We should be pretty good. This one's not a tough task for ArcPro to do. I'm not freaking out because my computer does this often when I'm using tools, is it'll turn black like this, say it's not responding. Give it a few seconds and then it bounces right back and it's fine. Fingers crossed on this one anyways. There we go. The tough part is it both came in as green, so if I change this symbology on the tracks just to be a different color, I'm not going to choose anything crazy. You can see a single symbol in here that just represents the tracks itself. Or if I did the dark outline, you can start to see that here. If I were to uncheck the state level tracks, you can see where they're at within Little Rock as a whole. At this point, I can remove the state file because I don't need those tracks. I have the ones for Little Rock specifically. Now there's two of the parts we need to do before getting to the statistics. One is joining our spatial file, the motor vehicle theft, and one is a table. I'm going to start off by doing the table join. So when I say a table join, if I open up our Little Rock Tracts attribute table, we need to find the unique identifier that's common across each. So I'm going to open this table here. And if you remember what I did in Excel, I pulled in the GEOID, made that from the geographic identifier over here. In our tract file that we downloaded from the census, we see here that it's the GEOID as well. So this is what we want to match it based off of. So if I want to join this table to the spatial file, I right click on the file, I want to join the data to. So click on my tract file, go to joins and relates, and this one is a table join, so we're just adding a join for this. With that, you have to specify what you want it to join based on. It has the correct files that we want to join together, but the wrong variable within each. So we know that it's GEOID in each one. You can see it updated this one down here in the poverty table itself to match this one. You can always validate the join. Since we just checked it, we're good to go. Gonna hit OK. And you can see here for our table data itself, we did this for Pulaski County. So it's a bit larger than Little Rock, so you see 107, so we won't have all of them matching. With that, if I hit X here, and now I'm left with just the attribute table from our shapefile, and since that join went through, if I scroll to the end, you'll now see we have percent poverty, and we're good to go. Yes, there's some null, we're fine with that. Again, like I said, I'm not going to get into a lot of the issues with that. If this was a research project, we would go through and look at why these aren't generating. Not a huge deal because I'm already familiar with which ones these are. Again, if you don't realize which ones they are, you can always highlight them, and then that's a selecting. You can see here, it's truly selecting tiny little ones that are on the outskirts that would also be in another county. So there's not data on those. But for now, I'm just going to clear that. But you can see our percent poverty here is generated in the table itself. Traditionally, we made maps based on this, so if we wanted to change this to a graduated color, you can use that percent poverty to generate a map based on that alone. We have it at natural breaks. I'm just going to switch it up to quantile. Switch this ordering. This is just what I get in the habit of doing. But you can see where percent poverty for the population between 18 to 64 is higher than the other. Sometimes this isn't the greatest of color schemes, so you can get in there and change it around to where it's a bit easier to follow. But you can see it ranges, and this is just knowing it already. We have some low ones going up to just over 60%. So pretty nice variation within Little Rock. If you're familiar, this is not a surprising map given every other social measure we've ever looked at. Alright, the next step now would then be to display our motor vehicle theft and then join that to this file here. So our sheet 1 down here is technically our motor vehicle theft. So if I right click on that, do display XY data, it automatically picks up X field as longitude, Y field as latitude. We're good to go there. All I mention here, save it to what you know it is. So this is motor vehicle theft 2021 Little Rock. So when it generates and adds it to the table, we're good to go. Hit OK. And now we're going to have a bunch of points on the map representing incidents of motor vehicle theft for calendar year 2021 in Little Rock. Some of these might not have lat long, so we're good to go with that. We did not look at that ahead of time. So we kick those out, and now we can could remove those if we want to, but for now, we're good either way. Say you wanted to change the symbology of the motor vehicle theft, you can search and add a car vehicle itself. All I recommend is click on all style, and then type in vehicle or car. And you have a lot of options that pop up for you to go ahead and select from if you want to do a police car itself. But you do have different options to represent just motor vehicle theft. They're all pretty small, but you can go in and change the properties and change the size of it to make it a bit more identifiable. Now, many times this is what we've done in the past is you're looking at point distributions over another layer. So your layers itself is the bottom one. We have percent poverty at the tract level. On top of that, we have a point estimate or points of motor vehicle theft for the calendar year. Now, this is helpful. I mean, visually you could see and try to do some visualization of just eyeballing, are there relationships here? We see percent poverty, motor vehicle theft versus higher or lower poverty level, living in poverty, and motor vehicle theft. We can see generally that there's a nice cluster in the middle of Little Rock. Not surprising, especially in the downtown River Market area. With that though, we want to join and make a count of these based on the census tract itself. To do that, we want to join our point data, our motor vehicle theft, to our clipped Little Rock boundaries, or the tracts itself. So with that, the same file that we joined the poverty data to that we have displayed, we're going to join now the points. So if I click on this file, I'm going to do another join. This time I'm going to come down to a spatial join. Now when you do a spatial join, it also creates a new layer for you. So this is going to be a polygon feature, another census tract layer, but it's going to have a join count at the beginning of it. So join features, I want to join in our motor vehicle theft. I'm just going to keep this one as Little Rock Tracts, Poverty, MVT. So I know I've joined those two to it. Intersects, so here our tracts contain, and we're good to go. Again, more advanced, we get into the field, so you can do some other calculations within it. But for our purposes and in this class, we're just concerned with the join count that's generated at this beginning of it. So if I open this attribute table for the new one I just created, here's our join count. So how many motor vehicle thefts there are per neighborhood. So with that, we're at the point of, if we hop back to our assignment, the bottom part. So the top part, really, you have to go through and do what we just did to even look at part 2 here. So say I wanted to look at our motor vehicle theft based on the census tracts. I just right click on this field, our join counts, and hit statistics. This is automatically going to run statistics for you and grab the information that the assignment's asking for. You don't have to calculate anything. This is providing this for you. So you can see over here, it created even a chart. It's going to generate here and open it up next to our attribute table. Then on the right hand side in the pane itself, it's going to give us the mean, median, standard deviation, min, max, a lot of good information that we can use to fill out, one, the assignment, but if you're writing a paper wanting to do more advanced analysis with it, it gives you a nice descriptive data set or data points describing your data. Give that a second to load. It's taking a bit longer than I thought it would. There we go. So you can see on the right hand side it already generated for us. So you can see on average there's about 15 motor vehicle thefts in each census tract. Median, so we know at least 50% of our census tracts have 12 motor vehicle thefts, 50% have more. Quite a large standard deviation with a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 58. We had a total of 1,028 motor vehicle thefts for calendar year 2021 that had spatial information, lat and long. So this is good information to know. We know where we're standing. We can describe our data and the distribution from point to census tract level. Similar, if I come to the end now and where we have that poverty measure that we added to it, a little too far. There we go, percent poverty. If I do statistics on this one, again, going to create another distribution chart over here in my contents, create the distribution for us in the histogram, and then over here, pull up our information to where we see, surprisingly, very similar numbers to the motor vehicle theft. So if we look on average, we have about 15% of the population, or 14 if we round down, truly that way. It's depending on how many decimal places. So 14 to 15% of the population between 18 and 64 across these census tracts are living below the poverty line. We know that the 50% mark, so about half of the tracts with a population between 18 and 64 are living below the poverty line. That's about 12%. Oh, half the tracts at 12%. There we go. Our minimum still 0, max is 60%, so we see that is very high. The purpose is here, the sum doesn't matter because we're adding up then percentages based on the census tract. Doesn't give us as much information. The interesting part though is if you want to look at the maximum here, so we're saying that 60% of the population of 18 to 64 year olds in one census tract is living below the poverty line. That's a lot. So with that, I'm interested in truly knowing that. If I right click on our percent poverty, sort descending, it's going to give me that high one at the start. Just reordered some things. But I'm going to highlight this over here. I'm going to uncheck the motor vehicle theft. So I can see here in this, I'm going to change the symbology real quick, just so we can see, and that looks like it's just south of I-630. And this is not shocking given some other work we have going on. Zoom in. Yes, so if we have the interstate coming through, I'm just turning a few things on and off to see where we're at. Alright, so not surprising here. Let's just do the top. Let's do anything above 30, so these here. Wonder how many are right around it. So we do still see some of that dividing up based on 630 and even 30 down there, to where our high percent of population, 18 to 64-year-olds, are living below the poverty line. So here we have identified 7 tracts where it's over 30% of the 18 to 64-year-olds in these neighborhoods are living below the poverty line itself. Pretty cool to see and visualize, but this is where it helps you understand the community context of where crime and also social constructs and social measures that we oftentimes hear about play out in the variation across a city itself. So with that, went over, had all the information that you would need for the assignment, and just I was curious at the end to see what some of this looks like, so we're good to go there. If there's any questions, feel free to reach out. If not, enjoy.